Hello and welcome to the traditional Yuletide video. So this will be the third year now where I've done a land artwork based video. So welcome to the third Land Ahoy episode. And in this particular episode I'm going to be going from M14 through to Shadows over Innistrad. So that takes us up to the block just before where we are block-wise in set musings. And as of that, the last set we're going to look at today, as of Shadows over Innistrad. So we had, Battle for Zendikar onwards. And so that's where the 2 set per block paradigm kicked in. Battle for Zendikar with Oath of the Gatewatch, and then into Shadows over Innistrad block. Again, 2 sets per block, and that's where we'll finish up in this episode. I have all the artwork. Well, I believe I have all the artwork from all the sets from M14 to Shadows over Innistrad in terms of basic land artwork. One thing to remember, of course, is with certain blocks there was only one set of artwork for the whole block, and that was created for the first set of the block, and then it was reused. And you won't become aware of that just because of the way I've sorted this, in that you're not going to see me. You're going to hear me delving into my box, but you're not going to see that happening. But if you did, you'd notice that, for instance, Theros block, I got a ton of cards because the artwork was reused across all 3 sets, or used in all 3 sets, and I would have opened, a number of different products in terms of what now are called bundles. Although of course they're not in the form they were originally, and also things like their builders toolkits as well had basic land packs in them. It gets interesting when we get to Khans of Tarkir, because for that they did actually print small amounts of artwork for each of the subsequent smaller sets in that block, in the Khans block, and that was just thematically, like thematic reasons for that. Other things you might notice, we're probably going to see anything from, say, 2 pieces of basic land artwork per block up to 5. Also notice we have a partial triumphant return of the grid, just enough to try and keep these cards straight. I'm going to show the whole card, not just the artwork bit, and that's because we're going to be seeing full artwork land, because of course Battle for Zendikar had full artwork land in it. Other things to watch out for, because I won't necessarily point them out, is reoccurring artifacts across multiple colours of mana. Sometimes a thing, you might see maybe a moon or a symbol or something like that. And other things I thought about just before I was doing this video is certain reoccurring perspectives on artwork. Things like, anything that features like a cityscape thing. I don't know how many of those are, but again, the artwork almost looking in from a certain angle might be another thing to watch out for. And then maybe reoccurring themes generally. So you might notice that in certain sets, when you look at, say, the cards, the plains basic lands, the sort of things you're seeing are more likely to have certain terrain in them in a certain set than, say, others. Like one set might have more fields, more like pastoral look, like fields of corn or fields of cereals, that sort of thing. Whereas in other sets you might get aspects which you more commonly might see in a different colour of mana, like creeping in. So again, keep an eye out open for that stuff, because I won't necessarily flag it up. I'm probably going to say multiple times, oh, it's one of my favourite pieces of artwork, but that's just the nature of the thing. So let's press on now. I spent 5 minutes wittering on when I could have been looking at artwork. So let's look at some artwork. We'll start off with M14. I'll try and remember to say how many different variations there are here, but I can't guarantee that. That's a favourite of mine. So I just had an extra piece of artwork accidentally creep in there. That is bound to happen sometimes. So there's actually 4 pieces of artwork there. That one was a duplicate. Yeah, I did attempt to pre-sort these, but when you're pulling them from a box, sometimes you accidentally pull in an extra piece. Actually, that's nice. I'm just sliding a bit here. Now, obviously, with the core sets, you know, the artwork here, you're going to see a lot of reprints from earlier sets. That's part of the reason why I don't try and do too many sets at once in these episodes, because if you do, you just get a ton of artwork repetition, which, you know, some people might enjoy, but you have to draw the line somewhere sometimes. Okay. Moving on to the next set. So this is the Theros block. This is the one where I must have the most amount of cards overall, just because the sheer amount of product I opened for that. But in terms of just the variants, there's only, well, I think 4 pieces of artwork per colour of mana. And the other thing that I won't necessarily mention or remember to mention is, as we go through this, just think about the sets and the sort of things that thematically the sets were about. And in some cases, in the basic land artwork, that might be more obvious with some sets than others maybe. Yeah, one thing I noticed as I was going through the Theros basic land in my box and pre-sorting these, the swamps here are very fumey. The other thing, if you're like me and you've seen a lot of Magic the Gathering basic land artwork over the years, sometimes you'll look at a piece of artwork and you'll go, that looks very similar to artwork from another set, even though it's not exactly the same. And for some reason I'm just definitely getting a little bit of a Lorwyn vibe. You know, that sort of period in Magic from this. Not all of these pieces of artwork, but some of them. Not to the point I'm saying they've reused the artwork, but it looks similar. So because that artwork was used across the block as a whole, we now jump to M15. We're probably going to see quite a lot of repeating stuff here from M14. That's nice. Yeah, I'll probably be saying, oh, that's nice, or that's one of my favourites quite a lot. And of course, because in basic in core sets there is a tendency to pull artwork from previous sets, then yes, you will see definitely artwork that you may recognise here, which is exactly the same as artwork in an earlier Magic the Gathering set. It doesn't just look like it, it is it. And that's sometimes why I found, I don't know if anybody remembers them, I don't know if they're still done, but I think I once on the channel showed people a land station, which is what Wizards used to produce for the purposes of draft events and sealed events where people needed land. And sometimes a lot of them were, you know, primarily cards from core sets, or a specific core set. And it looked like they would produce like one a year around the core set. I think I have a couple of them. I have one from a year when there were still core sets. And I think I might have one from M14, but it was a artwork-wise, I think it might have been a bit of a disappointment. But I picked it up fairly cheap somewhere. That's an interesting style there. Very nice. So, what is next? Well, I think you'll probably know. And just before that, of course, with the core set we just looked at, the M14, that was 4 pieces of artwork. So, moving on to a period now where we'll see a lot more artwork in the block, and that of course is Tarkir. So we'll start off with the first set of the block. So, 4 pieces of artwork. I should have suggested at the top of this video that people make a nice milky or whatever your preferred type of beverages. I think for me it would have been a nice hot chocolate maybe. Or, something a bit stronger for the time of year. Keep the cold out. Because I suppose it depends on where in the world you're watching this from. Because if you're down watching this in the southern hemisphere, then it's considerably warmer than it is up here in Nova Scotia. We've not had any snow yet here, but that's not unusual for this time of year. And people might be surprised to learn that we don't always have white Christmases in Nova Scotia. Often the snowier and the really cold weather doesn't happen until January. Very nice, this artwork in this set. I tend to forget about it for some reason. I think for me sometimes I can become a bit fixated on some of the earlier artwork in earlier sets in Magic, back at the time of the old borders. Not because I played at that time, but I probably came to appreciate that artwork a little bit later. So, as I've said, the unusual thing here for blocks. So that was Tarkir. Let's take a look at Fate Reforged, because they printed some artwork for the small set, and that was just because they were doing some, I suppose, messing around with timelines in the set, and they wanted artwork to better reflect that thematically. At least that's my understanding. So, Fate Reforged it is. And you'll probably not be surprised to see that because of that, there's only 2 pieces of artwork per colour of a mana. So here's a question for all of you land aficionados out there. When you put decks together, do you prefer to use mainly artwork of all one type? So, if you've got a deck, say, with, say, swamps in it, you just use the same artwork for all the slots? Or do you prefer to use different, completely different artwork for each of the slots? So for all your, say, swamp slots, say there were 14, you'd have 14 different pieces of artwork. Oh, accidentally must have grabbed a foil there. I was probably going to try putting one on. They never come up that great, I noticed. That's not too bad. And obviously because I've got in this land box land that would have come from boosters as well, potentially. We're going to see the odd foil there. There we go. I left you with plain grid there. Anybody that likes the grid. There we go. I like the grid myself, but the problem with it is unless it's perfectly straight, it's super annoying and distracting. And it doesn't work always well if you ever have the camera at any angle apart from almost straight down. Okay, so cards of Tarkir now. So again, we're in the same block as Dragons of Tarkir. I misspoke. So Dragons of Tarkir. So we're in the same block as Khans of Tarkir, but in different artwork again. This time we've got 3 pieces of artwork. Which is interesting. So what they did there was 4 pieces of artwork for Khans of Tarkir, 2 pieces of artwork for Fate Reforged, and 3 pieces of artwork per mana for Dragons of Tarkir. Now there was something else I noticed with the artwork on this, on the white and the blue mana cards. We'll see if it gets repeated elsewhere. But there was a very frosty theme to at least one artwork piece from the plains and the islands. Do we see that in the swamps? Not sure. Maybe that one, I don't know. Oh, that's very fiery. There we go. And another underneath. I'm just looking at this a bit closer. That's more foggy, isn't it, really? And this one, another fiery one. Okay, so back to another set that was, in essence, a core set. It was called Origins, but it very much felt like a core set. And this was to mark the dividing line, if you remember, between the 3 set per block paradigm and shifting over to the 2 sets. But you can also notice, even though it doesn't have core set in the title of the set, we have that reoccurring artwork of core sets, which are pieces of artwork from earlier sets, earlier expansions. So you can probably see here that's what Ravnica themed stuff. I'm sure this is something else we've started to notice generally as, you know, look at more land artwork over various periods, is there are definitely some sets where it would be fairly easy to either mistake the artwork if you didn't know, like, where it was from. Like, would you think that was maybe a forest? I mean, it looks swampy, but yeah, we definitely got quite a few city type pieces of artwork here in this particular set. And yeah, 4 pieces of artwork per colour and manner. This is another favourite of mine. And ones like this as well remind me a lot of when you're in the heart of Ashdown Forest, where I grew up, and you have these, you know, tracks, which are probably old riverbeds, and they run in amongst the forest. Very Tolkien. Okay. So with Battle for Zendikar, we have a little bit of a treat here, which is full art land. Nice to take a look at this. Now, the other thing with this is, I think, and we'll see in a moment actually, isn't this 5 pieces of artwork? I believe it is. Let's have a look. And something else you'll notice is keep your eyes out for repeating Zendikar motifs. And anybody that's familiar with any set from Zendikar will probably know exactly what I'm talking about here. Well, actually, there's a couple of things. You have, items that seemingly defy gravity. But also the ever-present hedrons. It's interesting because up until they started, doing full art land work and including them in things outside of the boosters, they were on the pricey side. I can remember wanting to buy some full art land work, even just for a Pack Wars kit, and then actually working out, I mean, not super expensive, but expensive for land to do that at the time. And I even remember the first time they put full art land in a supplemental product after the, when they first started appearing in original Zendikar. So sometime after that, those things just flew off the shelves because people wanted to get hold of full art land. Because I think, previous to that, you had full art land work in the unsets, and in the first Zendikar, original Zendikar set boosters, and I think that was pretty much it really. And then once they did it in subsequent sets like Battle for Zendikar, then it did become a little bit more of a thing for a while. But it was nice in this set. We have 5 pieces of artwork for each. And it was now possible to have all of the same artwork in full art land a lot easier. Lovely. So what I wanted to also make sure I include here, because they were basic lands. So one thing they did for Over the Gatewatch is, if you remember, they introduced wastes. So this was from the second set in the Battle for Zendikar book. And they were basically just 2 pieces of artwork for the wastes. Or at least that's what I have. And mine would have come from, I think they included some in again, something like a toolkit maybe, or some other supplemental product. But that's not to say they didn't do something slightly different in the boosters. So the final ones I want to look at now, before we wrap this up, is Shadows over Innistrad. Again, keep your eye out for any reoccurring archetypes, tropes, however you want to think of them, themes in this artwork across the colours of mana. So you can see there, looks like it could be 3 pieces of artwork per colour of the mana. I like that one. So did you spot it, or at least one thing? I'm sure there was more than that in terms of something that seemingly cropped up in one card in each of the colours of mana. Shape there. Let's go back to the planes. I won't go through all of them, but you can see there it is there as well. So hopefully you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making it. It's certainly something I look forward to doing this time of year, and certainly there will be one again next year, and obviously we'll be, for that one, starting up with Kaladesh. So as we start to close off 2022, I'd like to thank everybody for their continued viewing of this channel, and hopefully it's going to be a very interesting and flourishing 2023, and hopefully you're going to enjoy some of the new content that I've got planned, and also some of the continuing series of episodes that I've got for certain things, particularly the Magic the Gathering triumvirate of Set Musings, Commander Doodle, and the Friday artwork video. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and be well.